Hi, I'm Jules from Juliet Paco Designs. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want to talk about spring cleaning. It is April and here in Massachusetts it is starting to feel more like spring, which means it's just kind of cold and rainy and gray all the time. But it is starting to get a little bit warmer, and I'm starting to think about transitioning my wardrobe to more warm weather appropriate clothes. And I'm also thinking about my knitting projects for the upcoming season. And so generally that transition in the seasons leads me to sort of think about both my yarn collection and my closet, and to think about how I can clear out some of the things I don't really use anymore, don't really wear, things that I'm just like not in love with anymore, and try to find new homes for them. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on this week. So I want to be really intentional about my decluttering. I think in the past I have sort of just gone through, taken out the stuff I don't wear, the stuff I'm not going to use, and just put it in a bag to give to Goodwill or to Savers. And while that is not the worst option, I've been learning a lot about the crisis of waste clothing in the world, and how a lot of the stuff that we donate to thrift stores actually just gets shipped to the global south and basically ends up being incinerated because it can't get used. So I try to be a bit more mindful these days about what I do with the clothes and the yarn and the things in my home that I no longer use. So my first course of action is usually to try to sell the item on either Poshmark or Depop for my clothes, for my yarn collection or any craft supplies. Etsy is a really great place to do that, or having Instagram story sales works too. So there's an app I recently heard of called Lucky Sweater. I haven't tried it myself yet, but I think I'm gonna give it a try soon because it seems like a really cool way of rehoming either handmade items or sustainable items or vintage items. So basically, instead of selling your items, you are trading them. So you can list something that you have, like let's say I'm no longer interested in this sweater I knit a couple years ago, I don't wear it anymore, but you know, it's a hand knit sweater, so I don't want to just give it to Goodwill. I want it to go to a home where the person will really appreciate it for what it is. So what you can do on Lucky Sweater is you can list it, and then people can see it and they can like it. And then while I'm on Lucky Sweater, then I can like other people's things. And I think it's almost like Tinder, where if you have like a match, if I like something that someone else has listed and they like my item, then we can get connected to establish a trade basically. And we can, you know, talk about shipping costs and all that, and basically trade our items for new items, which I think is a really cool idea. And so I'm excited to get more into that. I have a couple of hand knit sweaters that I just don't really use anymore. I don't really wear them. Either they're just like not my style and I knit them more for the fun of knitting them, rather than because I actually wanted to wear them before I really started thinking more deeply about why I was knitting things. So I think the Lucky Sweater app is gonna be a really cool tool to intentionally rehome those items. Another thing I like to do, if I can't sell things on Poshmark or Depop, or if things aren't selling on Etsy, I will host a clothing swap or a yarn swap with my friends. I've done this before with roommates in the past, where we've just like piled all our clothes that we no longer wear in the living room, and we just dig through and see if there's anything that we want either to exchange or just to give away. I do a similar thing with yarn and craft supplies. In my local knitting group, about once a year, usually around our holiday party, we have an event where we bring all of our yarn or any supplies that we don't want anymore or we aren't planning on using, and we swap it and exchange it with each other and hopefully find it a new home where it will actually get used. I'm very lucky in my neighborhood that we have a secondhand arts and crafts supplies shop called Make and Mend. And it's a shop where you can donate any unused materials, ranging from yarn and fabric to colored pencils and paints and books even. They just have absolutely anything you could ever want. and people donate their unused supplies, and then Make and Mend sells them back to people. And it's a great option for students, especially like art school students who need a lot of supplies for their projects, for their homework, but some of those supplies can get pretty pricey. So Make and Mend is a really great option. You should definitely look in your area to see if you have something similar to that. If you don't have anything similar to that and you do want to give your yarn to a shop like that, there are some online options. I know of one that is run by my business coach, Anastasia Williams. It's called Yarn for the Birds, and I will put a link down in the description for you. But basically, Anastasia rehabilitates wild birds. And so she runs this sort of yarn destash shop as a way to raise funds for the bird rehabilitation projects that she does. Another option is to just have like a good old fashioned yard sale. Again, I'm very lucky in my neighborhood of Somerville, Massachusetts, where we have a yard sale every year where they invite residents to come out onto their yards or their porches and to sell their artworks, or to just sort of do their closet clear outs and treat it like a yard sale, whatever. You can kind of just set up on your lawn and sell anything, which is really cool. So I've done that. I did that last year for Juliet Pico Designs. I was selling some of my own work, but then I was also just selling some of the stuff in my closet that I no longer wore. And it was a really great event. I set up a little tent in my front yard, and I got to meet a bunch of my neighbors. I had several friends come and hang out with me for the day. It was just a lovely event. And I got to really participate in the community and then also thoughtfully rehome a lot of these items that otherwise would have just been in a landfill. Most neighborhoods nowadays also have a free and for sale group or a buy nothing group or a zero waste group. A lot of these are hosted on like Facebook or an app like Nextdoor. So you can find like a very hyper local community swap type platform, and you can list things on there. And a lot of times you can literally just put it out on your sidewalk or your front porch, and with a little sign that says, you know, free, take it, whatever. And you can arrange to have people pick it up, or you can just leave it out and whoever, you know, first come, first serve. So that's another option to both get rid of things that you're not using, and then to also help out somebody in the community who maybe needs an item but can't afford to buy it new. So when I've exhausted all of those options, and if I still have some things that I just know I'm not going to use, I will take a bag to my local Savers. And if you donate to Savers, you usually get a coupon that you can then use to shop at Savers. So I try to plan my donations for when I am planning to do a little thrift shopping. If I know I need something, you know, I usually go there for like basics, like t-shirts and tank tops and those kinds of things, because they're usually like guaranteed to have them. So it can be a little tricky because I try to shy away from wearing synthetics. So thrift shopping can get a little tricky because just a lot of clothes are made with polyester or acrylic. So I don't always find what I'm looking for, but it is always a fun adventure either way. In knitting, there's like this idea that knitting is a separate hobby from collecting yarn. And it's treated as this kind of like joke thing, and people talk about SABLE, S-A-B-L-E, which is stash acquisition beyond life expectancy. And it's treated as a joke, and it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable because it's just this idea of like overconsumption of anything, even if it's yarn, you know, and craft supplies, stuff that you use for making your own clothes. It's still kind of contributing to this general overconsumption problem. And I personally don't want to have so much yarn that I can never knit it, you know? I don't want to die one day and just have all my yarn donated to a charity shop. I want to be more intentional with it, and so I want to really think about what I truly plan to knit in the next few years, and what I realistically can knit in the next few years. You know, if I had more hands, I would knit all the ideas in my head, but I don't. I only have two hands, and so I do have to be more realistic and think about what I can actually get done and what I will actually get done. Because the other thing is your tastes change over time, right? So if I buy this yarn thinking, okay, well, I'll knit it in 2 years or something. It's like, okay, but by the time 2 years rolls around, you might kind of be tired of that yarn. It might not be the right color. You might have a different idea of the pattern you want to use, and that's not the right yarn for it. So just a lot can change. And so I'm trying to only keep yarn and buy yarn that I plan to knit in the next like 18 months-ish, is kind of my goal, which who knows if I'll actually do that or not, but that's kind of the mindset I'm going into it with. So while I was going through my yarn collection, I found a lot of things that I haven't used and just don't ever really plan to use. Some of it was gifted to me, some of it I bought with a plan in mind, and then I just have changed my mind. I no longer want to work with it. And a lot of this stuff isn't bad yarn. It's all beautiful, lovely yarn. I just am not going to use it personally. And actually, that's one of the things that motivates me to get rid of it, because it's beautiful yarn and I think it should be used, and I want somebody to make something cool with it. That's just not going to be me. So I want to give it to somebody who's going to appreciate it and who's going to use it and to make something really cool. So some of the yarns that I have found in my stash that I will be destashing shortly. I'm gonna list all of these, I think, probably on my Etsy. I might do like an Instagram story highlight that has all of the listings in there as well. But I think Etsy is just kind of like an easy platform to list things. So I'll probably start there. But some of the stuff I'll be giving away is I have these 2 skeins of this Drops Snow, which is this like lovely bulky wool, and it's in this lovely like dark chocolate brown shade. You can see that. And it's really nice, it's soft. It would be great for like a hat or a pair of mittens or something. I'm just never really gonna use it. But I hope this will find a good home and that somebody else will find a great use for it. Another thing I'm destashing are these lovely Magpie Fibers Nest Sport, which is a non-superwash Corriedale. And it's this beautiful purple color. And you know what? I'm actually not sure yet if I'm gonna destash it. I really do love this yarn and I wanna make something with it. But the problem is I only got 4 skeins and I'm not sure what I would do with that, because I'm not big on like accessories. Like I think this would make a gorgeous shawl. I'm just not really a shawl person. So part of me really wants to hang on to this and do something with it because it is such gorgeous, lovely yarn. And I got it while I was on a family trip to Frederick, Maryland. So I visited the Magpie store. But I just don't know if I'm gonna use it. And it's too good of a yarn to let sit in my room, you know? I can't just let it sit in its plastic bin in my office and collect dust, you know? Like I need it to be used. So we'll see if I list this or not. I have 3 full balls and 1 partial ball of this Cotton Merino Classic from Mayfair. It's this lovely heathered green color. I used this to make my Hemingway shorts by the Knitting Booth. And it's great yarn, it's lovely, it's very soft, it's great for summertime projects. I just bought too much of it, and so I have a little bit left over. So this would be like just enough to make either a nice little summer crop top or something, or like a little summery shawl, something like that. Another thing I have is this Dirty Water Dye Works mohair. It's this bright orange. I think the color is persimmon. And I have 2 skeins of it. So it's like just enough to make a sweater like the Love Note or the Lento if you're holding it together with something. And it really is like this just beautiful bright orange. I just don't think I'm ever gonna use it. It's maybe just a little too bright for me. I think if I had the main color in this color and then like a more toned down mohair, that might work. But because this is the mohair, that's gonna be like the more prominent color because of the halo. And so I just don't think it's gonna work for me. But I think somebody who loves bright colors is really gonna love this. Another thing I'm destashing that is not actually yarn, but is knitting supplies, is this Haya Haya interchangeable needle set. So it's got a bunch of different size needles there, and then it's got the cords. I bought this ages ago. It was my first interchangeable needle set. It served me very well, but I don't love working with metal needles, I've discovered, and since then I've actually bought a wood needle set, so I just never really used this. But I also know that interchangeable sets are very pricey, and so they are intimidating for a lot of people to buy. So I'm planning to offer this for a fraction of the cost for somebody who wants to try out an interchangeable set, but maybe doesn't have the funds to invest in one right now. I also have this for the sewists among you. It's the Lol Sew and Sew. It's like a handheld sewing machine. I don't know where this came from. Maybe it was gifted to me. I really don't know where I got this. But it's like this little handheld sewing machine. It's like, I guess good for travel, or just making like really quick repairs or something. But I'm never gonna use this, but it's a cool gadget, I think. It's a good idea. So if somebody really likes to travel and likes to have a little mini sewing machine for any like repairs or something, this would be great for you. Okay, so I'm not gonna show you everything I'm destashing, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that I'm trying to find a new home for and kind of give you the reasons why. So one thing I found in my yarn collection that I bought, I must have bought this 5 years ago or so. It was when I was working at Gather Here, my local yarn store in Cambridge, Mass. I bought 5 skeins of this gorgeous Brooklyn tweed quarry, which is a bulky weight woolen spun yarn. So it's like not plied, it's very lightly plied. You can kind of see that. And it's this lovely gray. It's called Moonstone, but it's kind of a cool toned gray. It actually has, I don't know if you can see, but it has like these little tiny flecks of like royal blue in it. They're kind of hard to see. Maybe here's one. You can see that like little fleck of royal blue. It's a gorgeous color, but I'm just not into cool tones. I don't wear a lot of blues. I know that everybody is into that like color season analysis, like based on your like hair and eye color and stuff. And I've done those like quizzes, and I think I'm supposed to be a soft summer maybe. I'm not totally sure. Because I don't care, because I don't like the colors. Whatever color season it told me I didn't love the colors. It was like a lot of pastels and like bright colors, and I just don't really wear those. I wear a lot of warmer colors, more autumnal, earthy tones. And I don't think they make me look that washed out. I don't think they make me look that bad. So I'm gonna keep wearing them because that's what makes me happy and that's what brings me joy. But I only sort of came to that conclusion in the last couple years after I bought this. So the thing is, I don't want to get rid of this yarn because it is a gorgeous yarn and I do want to use it. So my plan is to over dye it with some leftover natural dyes. I also naturally dye yarn as well as part of my business. So I had some leftover Kutch dye, which is brown, sort of reddish brown, very, very warm toned. And I have some exhaust dye of that. I dyed a batch of yarn with the Kutch at like full strength. And then what happens is if the yarn will take up as much of the pigment as it can, and then the rest of the pigment is left in the dye bath, and that becomes the exhaust. And so it's basically just like a lighter shade of that same color. So basically I'm going to try to dye this yarn in that exhaust bath, and hopefully it'll come out as a nice warm toned neutral. The fun thing about natural dyeing, at least the way I do it, is that I never really know what's gonna happen. I don't measure super precisely. Like, I measure a little bit, but I don't like check the pH of the water. I don't, you know, get it down to like the milligram, the exact amount of dye. I don't use the exact same dye source every time. I get my dye materials from different sources, so sometimes they're just a little different. So I never really know what's gonna happen. But that's kind of the fun part, right? It's just whatever comes out of the pots is what it is, and it's almost always a beautiful color, because the beauty of natural dyes is that they kind of all create beautiful, unique colors. So my plan with this yarn, once I over dye it, is to re-knit an old sweater design that I knit two and a half, maybe 3 years ago now. I don't even remember. But it was a sweater that I didn't wear as often as I would like. It was kind of, the color was a little too bright for me. It was a bright orange. So it was a little too intense for me. And I also had like a weird interaction with the yarn company on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram for a while, you've probably heard this story a few times already, because I talk about it a lot because it really stuck with me. But basically they shared my photo, and I got really excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like this yarn company shared my sweater photo. And then they like within an hour like deleted it, and like it just disappeared from their grid, and they didn't really say why. I asked them about it and they kind of just brushed it off and were kind of rude about it. So just because of that interaction, I kind of like didn't want to wear the sweater anymore, right? Because if you wear a hand knit sweater out in the world, people are like, oh my gosh, what's this yarn? And I like didn't want to promote the yarn anymore, right? So I stopped wearing the sweater. It was also, the color was too bright for me, and there were some changes that I wanted to make anyway with the neckline, so kind of all worked out for the best. I actually ended up rehoming that sweater to somebody in my neighborhood. I sold it at the yard sale that I was talking about earlier. So that was a successful rehoming of a hand knit. But basically I'm gonna re-knit that pattern, make all the tweaks that I wanna make, and I'm gonna use this yarn. And hopefully it'll be a different color the next time I show it to you. Another thing I do when I'm clearing out my yarn collection is I go through the whips that like haven't been touched in a while. So this is one of those. This is the beginning of the Dress to Kill sweater, which is based off of the sweater that Chris Evans wears in Knives Out. So it's like that, you know, classic cable knit look. I started this sweater, again, I want to say like 2.5 years ago, maybe longer. And as you can see, it's not very big. We haven't made much progress on this, and I'm not a slow knitter. So this amount of progress in like 2 years is, at this rate, this sweater's never getting done. And there's nothing wrong with the pattern. It's a beautiful pattern. It's very well written. I don't know if it's still available. I think it might have actually been discontinued because the designer decided to stop designing, but you might still be able to find it online. I'm not sure. If it is still available, I'll put a link in the description, but because it's a really gorgeous pattern. I think just with all of the cable charts, it was just like a lot to focus on, and I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to knitting projects that aren't my own designs, because that is like my livelihood is a knitwear designer, so I don't really have the opportunity to just knit for fun that much anymore. And when I do knit for fun, it's usually something like pretty simple and mindless that I don't have to think too much about. This is not simple and mindless, but I do really like the yarn. So I think I have about 20 skeins of this. It's the Andean Treasure sport weight from Knit Picks. This is the color Finley Heather. It's this nice gray heather. And it's 100% baby alpaca. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. I have 20 skeins of it. I think I bought it during one of their big sales where like things are like 50% off. So I got this whole sweater quantity for like a really low price. So I don't want it to just sit in my bins again. I don't want it just sitting in my office gathering dust and not seeing the light of day. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to frog this bit, which Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but I'm going to frog it. My mom hates it when I frog things, but it has to be done. It has to be done because I have a great idea for the yarn. I plan to knit just a really simple big cardigan, stockinette stitch. I actually think I'm probably gonna knit it on my machine. I have a Brother KX350. I just want like a big cozy cardigan, you know, like an oversized like grandpa cardigan, like with buttons. And I think this yarn would be perfect for it. Just like a big oversized neutral cardigan that I can throw on over anything. I don't have anything like that. Like this is the closest thing I have to that probably. This is my, I suppose I should have told you about this. This is my apple cider donut cardigan. But it doesn't have buttons and it's not really a neutral. It's like this, I love it. It's like this gorgeous rusty red orange color, but I want something more neutral and I want something with buttons. So that's what this is gonna become. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with my decluttering. I'm one of those people that gets really stressed out by having like too much stuff in my space. I think Gretchen Rubin has a saying that outer order creates inner calm, which I very much agree with. When there's too much like stuff and clutter in my office, I like just totally lose focus. I can't get anything done. So I like to keep my space as clear as possible. So I can't really have too much of a big yarn collection because I do live in a small apartment in Massachusetts. I don't have unlimited space, but I have in the last couple years, since I moved back to Boston, I've acquired quite a lot of yarn, quite a lot more yarn than I know what to do with. So I am gonna try to clear a lot of it out and find new homes for it, hopefully with people that will get some good use out of it. And I encourage you to also be very mindful when you're decluttering and to just think about what you really need, what you're really gonna use, and if maybe there's someone out there who could make better use of it. There's no shame in that. You know, if you bought yarn at a time, like a lot of people buy yarn on vacation, it's totally fine. I do that all the time, but eventually if you come to the realization that it's just not gonna get used, then I think it's time to declutter, time to find a new home for it, and time to do it mindfully and with intention. So good luck on your own spring cleaning journeys. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on destashing.